Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to talk to you about pearl trade today. This is a much more updated version of my talk that I gave last year at UCLA for our Armenia Indica conference. So in the summer of 2014, I traveled from UCLA and came to Yerevan to spend some time working at the Mesro Pashtat Institute of Ancient Manuscripts, Madanaran. My aim was to sift through various manuscripts, mostly from the early modern period, that discussed gems, minerals, their trade, and related topics. My former PhD advisor, Sebo Aslanyan, had previously drawn my attention to an undated manuscript written by Aghamal Khoja Minasyan, son of Safras. This manuscript, numbered 5994 at the Madanadaran, had not been studied earlier and was described in Hako Panasyan's monumental bibliography of Armenian manuscripts as a manual on the trade of pearls and their calculations. The pearl manuscript was bound together with the famous trade manual written by Gostad of Julfa in the 1680s, entitled Concerning Advice to the Adolescent and to Young Merchants, more commonly known as Ashkharajov. The pearl manual was copied between two sections of the compendium, almost as if it were part of the larger manuscript. As we shall see, this is not the case, as attested by a separate colophon with the name of the author of the manual and its copier. Despite its description as a pearl trade manual, I had difficulty understanding the obscure pearl calculations and descriptions presented by the author, not to mention the conversion charts that accompanied these calculations. The text was written in the New Julfan dialect, while the decimal system on the charts corresponded with a few other accounting ledgers left by New Julfan Armenian merchants, identified by me and my former colleague at UCLA, Michael Sullivan, as Gujarati. Even the title of the manual, Concerning the Trade of Pearls in India, called Cheva Chaseb by merchants, was hard to comprehend. With the help of our own Professor Sanjay Subramaniam, we were eventually able to identify the word Chev as the Tamil term for a unit in counting pearls, whereas Chaseb, of course, is the Arabic or Persian word Hesab, which means calculations or accounts. It wasn't until a few years ago, during my postdoctoral tenure at the Gemological Institute of America, and with the support of gemologists and geoscientists, that I had both the time to explore the manual thoroughly and access to the expertise of gemologists. It was then that I discovered this manuscript belonged to a completely different genre, widely used in the Indian Ocean during the early modern period and later, which I will refer to as a child book. But let's first explore Aghamal Khoja Minasyan's significance and understand how he came to write this complex work on the obscure calculations of pearls. Over the past decade, it has been established that the involvement of Armenian New Julfan merchants in the trade of gems between South Asia and the Mediterranean was highly significant, particularly during the second half of the 17th and the first half of the 18th centuries. The Khoja Minasyan family, of which Aghamal was a prominent member, was one of the three largest gem trading families from the suburb of New Julfa during this period. The Khoja Minasyans were likely one of the Armenian families deported by Shah Abbas in 1604-1605 to New Julfa during the Ottoman-Safavid Wars. Soon after being resettled, the Minasyans became one of the most influential families in New Julfa in the latter half of the 17th century, when the eldest family member, Khoja Minas, son of Panos, established a firm with four of his sons sometime in the 1670s or perhaps even earlier, we don't really know. The Minasyans were professionally involved in the global trade of gems and Asian textiles from 1670s to 1750s on the Indian subcontinent, Europe, and Asia. The Minasyan family's exclusive involvement in the global gem trade is specifically evident from the extensive business correspondence that the family left behind. From 1670s to the beginning of the 1700s, there is then a big gap of documentation on family's activities for probably almost 40 years, up until 1740s, when we find hundreds of documents which relate to the family's activities in what was called the country trade, between India and Iran. A preliminary look at this document shows that the Minassian firm continued to deal in gems during the 1740s, but even more so, it seems, was involved in the pearl trade between the Gulf of Mannar, Basra, and Europe. And this is a typical business letter from this family at the National Archives of Firenze. This is all just one document, by the way, it's a long roll. Let's talk about natural pearls real quick. Natural pearls were found in big quantities, both in the warm and shallow waters of the Persian Gulf, along the coastlines of modern Iran, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Dubai, but were also fished extensively in the Gulf of Mannar between Sri Lanka and South India. And you can see here, these are actually modern satellite images, but you can see the warmer, shallow waters, they differ. This is South India and Sri Lanka, this is the Gulf of Mannar. And also in the Persian Gulf here, you can see the shallow, warm waters, and this is exactly where the pearls are fished from. And of course, the pearl trade was of utmost importance for the people who lived along these coastlines for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And the pearl trade was also a lucrative one, and still is up until today. Aghamar Khoja Minassian became the head of the Minassian family firm after the murder of Khoja Minassi's only surviving son, Emniaz Diminas, by Nadir Shah in 1747. Being the eldest male member of the firm and the son of Khoja Minassi's brother Safraz, Aghamal was next in line for succession, so he became the head of the firm. And when I say family firm, the modern equivalent of that would be a family-owned company. The colophon of the Pearl manuscript states, and I'm quoting, "The viewer and the author of this is Safraz's son, Ahmad Agha Khoja Minassian, God rest his soul, whose daughter, Lady Sophia, gave me the copy of this and the copy of the pearls Cheva Chaseb after his death, and I copied it. Let God grant him longevity and listen to his prayers. The writer of this is Michael, or Mikhail, son of Nazareth," end of quote. This passage clarifies that the manuscript's author was indeed Safraz's son Aghamal, leaving little doubt about its authorship. The next challenge was to determine the date of Aghamal's manuscript. As I said, it was undated, which became possible thanks to a piece of information given by Aghamal himself, and the excerpt reads, I'm quoting, "Diamonds are traded in Zarb in India. The mines are situated in India, Hyderabad, Phuket, and Nagpur. It has been a short while since they found them in Brazil, New Spain. They are profitable all over the world," end of quote. Now, up until the early 1720s, the only known diamond deposits in the world were located in the Golconda region of India and to a lesser extent on the Borneo island. The Brazilian diamond mines of Minas Gerais were discovered in the early 1720s. As a professional gem merchant, Aghamal likely became aware of this development by the early 1730s, if not earlier. As mentioned already, I was able to identify Aghamal's manuscript as a Chow book. Let us now examine what Chow books were. Chow books were a specific genre of manuals or books used by pearl dealers and merchants, particularly in the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf, to assess the value of natural saltwater pearls. These books, known as Chow book or Daftar al-Awzan, with specific editions like Kitab al-Lali or Tuhfat al-Ashab, were also referred to as Book of Pearls or Pearl Accounting books, and were extensively published in the early 20th century in Arabic and Gujarati in Bombay, or modern Mumbai. Why specifically Bombay, you might think? By the late 1890s and early 1900s, Mumbai had become a burgeoning financial port city of the Indian Ocean. This economic boom led many Persian Gulf pearl dealers to move to Bombay, where they established shops and became dealers, merchants, and brokers, mainly of natural Gulf pearls. And this is a photo that I took myself in August 2022, and this is the image of the Moti Bazaar in Bombay. The 1900s, 2022, some of the pearl dealers and their descendants still have the same shops that they had in the 1900s up until now. They have the same shops, they haven't changed their location. The term Chow was a value used to evaluate single large pearls called dana in Arabic, as well as batches of large-sized pearls, likely since the late 1600s. The chow value was used exclusively for buying and selling natural pearls from the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Manar. It was calculated based on a given weight, which varied from one location to another, particularly between the Indian subcontinent and the Persian Gulf. Chow was derived from the square of the weight, but its valuation process required a detailed understanding of the pearl's quality, including its shape, luster, and color, among other factors. As such, chow books aimed to standardize the valuation of natural pearls across the Indian Ocean region. Interestingly, despite the scholarly literature being almost silent on the origins of chow, this value is still used daily in both India and the Persian Gulf, and this was my biggest shock when I started investigating this manuscript. Chow books were an essential part of a pearl merchant's toolkit, as you can see on your screens. This is all of the toolkit. The set of sieves, called tasa or tasad in Arabic, could range from 4 to 80 sieves with different sized holes. And these are the sieves made from brass, used up until today sometimes, and only made in India. You can't find these brass sieves anywhere else. Sieving helps dealers sort the pearls by size, which could then be further categorized by color, shape, luster, and other qualitative factors. After sorting, large-sized pearls were graded according to their shape, overtone, and other characteristics, which collectively help dealers determine the chow value of a single pearl or a batch of similarly shaped pearls of comparable quality. And you can see here, when the merchant is sieving the pearls, the big ones, of course, will stay in the sieve, and then the rest will fall under. And the ones that stay are calculated specifically to their own size, and then the value will depend on that. I can elaborate on this more during the Q&A. Chow books from the first quarter of the 20th century featured a single conversion chart based on weights used both in India and the Persian Gulf, such as mithqal, rati, haba, manzur, ana, and others. When operating across different Indian Ocean markets, merchants had to consider the variations in weights used to calculate chow. This is where Ahmad's chow book contributes significantly to this genre. Instead of providing one generic conversion chart, Ahmad includes two, one for Madras or Chennai and one for Surat. For context, the Surat chow differed from the Madras chow by almost double. According to Ahmad, 100 chows in Madras were equivalent to 193 chows in Surat. Between these conversion charts, Ahmad also explains how to calculate chow in Iran and even when trading in Venice. So you see the double difference during the same time period. Imagine being a pearl dealer and trying to buy and sell pearls across the Indian Ocean, Europe, Iran, all the long distances that the merchants were crossing at this point, and not having any guidance on how to do it. You're going to get cheated all the time. Thus, the main differences between Ahmad's chow book and those from the early 20th century are twofold. First, Ahmad's manual, and this is the process of sieving. I forgot I have this video here, sorry. But let's see if it will work though. Not working. As I said, the main differences between Ahmad's chow book and those from the early 20th century are twofold. First, Ahmad's manual is the earliest preserved example, predating the other manuals by at least 150 to 180 years. Second, Ahmad's chow book accounts for the differences in weights and chow values across various geographical locations, providing pearl merchants with a vital toolkit to easily navigate different commercial geographies and avoid being cheated, as I mentioned. Information that the chow books in Arabic and Gujarati do not reflect. On your screen, you see a folio from Ahmad's chow book where I have romanized the weights used in the table to help you follow along. Let's consider a pearl dealer in India during the 1740s who used one of the most common weights, rati, which is almost 0.11 grams, to weigh a pearl. After determining the pearl's weight in ratis, the dealer would then locate the specific number on the table, which would point to the corresponding column for the chow value of that weight. And here, for example, you can see this is the weight in rati. These are Armenian letters, but they're numbers really. This is the weight in rati. These are the decimals. So say 37, for example, 0.27. The merchant would weigh the pearl in ratis, and then he would look at the corresponding column for chow, which is this one, and determine the chow value right away. By using the chow book, instead of remembering the complex calculations needed to determine chow, pearl dealers only had to refer to the chow conversion tables. The next step involved was being aware of the market value per chow unit. So you had to know how much one chow was worth in the specific location that one was trading in. While chow helped standardize business transactions in the natural pearl trade, it was far from perfectly accurate. Chow was quite unstable, as determining the value of a pearl was a subjective process, calibrated by dealers and merchants. This is why, in his descriptions of buying and selling pearls, Agamal warned future Armenian merchants, and I'm quoting, "Calculating the chow value requires expertise. One must identify the commodity in the context of time and depending on its locality, shape, the type of water it came out of, the clarity, the species of the commodity, and the time. Pearls must be sold and bought according to the weights of the given time. God bless." End of quote. The instability and variability of chow, as well as the weights on which it was based, something Agamal Khoja Minassian adamantly highlighted, led some European observers to conclude that arriving at chow was such an obscure effort that even those conducting transactions with chow did not fully understand it. In reality, the complexity of these calculations stemmed not just from the instability of weights, but also from being a convenient tool for pearl dealers to maximize profits at any given time. And this is exactly why it took me more than 24 interviews with the biggest pearl dealers in the world to finally understand why none of them were able to explain to me how they calculated chow and the price of a pearl. You have to keep in mind, I always need to mention this during my talks, that a single round pearl of maybe 7, 8 to 10 millimeters could be worth thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. A short necklace with natural pearls that takes probably 20 to 30 years to assemble is worth millions of dollars. So you can imagine why calibrating the chow value among the modern pearl dealers is still a very common thing, especially that chow is now converted from a carat weight, defeats the purpose really of everything we talked about today. But because the chow value technically is a bigger number, it looks bigger, it seems that it's heavier, and everyone who's involved in the natural pearl trade in the Gulf and India understands chow. So the modern pearl dealers still operate in chow values. Even the European biggest auction houses like Sotheby's and others, when they're selling a natural pearl necklace or jewelry, they will usually mention the chow value on their websites, and that's something to keep in mind. Why would an Armenian gem merchant take time to produce a chow manual not written in Armenian, the likes of which were probably readily available in Gujarati and Arabic across the Indian Ocean? On your screen, you see a lengthy document which traveled on board of the Armenian freighted ship Santa Catarina, captured by the English Admiralty near Cape Comorin in 1748. This capture was part of a series of captures conducted by the English as part of their war efforts against France during this period. Santa Catarina was traveling from Basra to Kolkata in the Indian state of West Bengal. The document tells us that, and I'm quoting, "In the small year of 131 of the Lord, the below mentioned bought from the account of Mr. Harutun, Tarkhan, Hovanes, and the firm which is the inventory of goods purchased, was sent to Basra by caravan with Harutun. The document then proceeds to list a shipment of over 2,200 pearls of different shapes and sizes, among other gems. The November 15th shipment of 1746, these are all the pearls mentioned here. By the way, the word pearl is not mentioned once on this document. So if the person is looking at this document and is not aware of all the specific adjectives from different languages, Tamil, Arabic, Persian, you name it, then the person will never be able to tell that these are pearls. The word pearl is not mentioned because probably for their internal use, they already knew what it was. And by the way, each shipment of a pearl or batch of a pearl has probably 7 or 8 adjectives describing what kind of pearls these were, the color, the shape, you name it, but not a single time that they use the word pearl here. So the November 15th shipment of 1746 that you see here was funded from the Minasen family firm Capital. The owners of the gem shipments were Harutun, Tarhan, Grigor, and Hovannes, whom we can identify as being cousins who collectively represented the Hoja Minasen family firm of gem dealers, the same family who had freighted Santa Catarina. The author of the document was our own Agamal, son of Safras, along with Set, another investor in the gem shipment, who were cousins and at the same time the grandsons of the founder of the Minasen family firm, Hoja Minas Panos. And I've used Dr. Astanya's family tree that he made for the Minasen family firm, and you can find all the people mentioned as the holders of the capital in this document on this family tree. And the author of the document who wrote this down and recorded this was Agamal. The Santa Catarina Pearl documents, such as the one we discussed earlier, but many, many more, come to demonstrate why Agamal, son of Safras, would feel the need to educate his agents and other Armenian merchants involved in the pearl business about the intricacies of the pearl trade across the Indian Ocean. Agamal created a unique body of knowledge that went beyond dry conversion charts and dived into the part and parcel of how chow was calculated, information currently not found in any other chow books or pearl manuals to the best of my knowledge. To conclude, one of the main important qualities of chow books was their contribution to the production of knowledge and circulation in the Indian Ocean world. In his recent work on early 20th century Kuwaiti dhow captain Isa al-Qadami, Fahad Bishara looked at chow manuals as tools that, and I'm quoting, formed part of the infrastructure through which circulation took place in the Indian Ocean world, end of quote. Indeed, just like other paper instruments used by long-distance merchants, such as contracts, bills of exchange, accounting ledgers, business correspondence, chow books contributed to the different technologies used by merchants to manage the circulation of their capital and commodities, and strived to do so quickly and efficiently. By doing that, chow books, just like their owners, transcending boundaries of the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean, also contributed to the production of knowledge and technology. Long-distance merchants traveling throughout South Asia to the Mediterranean and northwestern European port cities with their precious pearls used their chow books as a way to organize the commercial chaos that their daily lives were comprised of. It's interesting that such an intricate manual for the very niche trade of pearls was arguably translated, this is my argument, when it comes to the conversion charts from Gujarati, and probably newly produced in the New Julfan dialect when it comes to the description of valuing pearls, as early as 1730s, making this chow book the earliest preserved copy currently known to the scholarly community. More importantly, this pearl manuscript represents just the tip of the iceberg in the vast, multi-layered circulation of information, capital, and knowledge production among merchants, which took place on a very large scale in the early modern Indian Ocean world. Thank you.